All right, I'm just trying to make sure it's going. So, yep, we're live everywhere. Let's start the video.
Good day, everybody. It is absolutely wonderful to get you all together for a really special edition of Pontoon here. So those of you that are watching at home, welcome aboard. I'm here with three of my really good friends and one really new one, producer Kai, as we put together a special edition of the Pontoon, which we're calling the Tommy Scarlett Tribute. So I think we're just going to run around. I want to introduce with us. We have, of course, up here on the right, we've got Steve Panez from Lake Commando Television. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
Great. We got Thomas Allen, the digital director at Fisherman Communications.
Good to see you, fellas.
And, of course, John Bala, walleye guru and tournament angler extraordinaire. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, guys. Nice to see everyone again.
Steve, what have you been doing? Let's just get caught up real quick before we get into Tommy's. And just so you know what's going to happen here on today's show is we're going to get a little caught up. And we have got a long list of guests that are going to join us on the Pontoon today. It's going to be a really special episode as we share how we got to know one of the world's greatest multi-species anglers and how he became such good friends with each one of us and how he touched each one of us. And we've got a laundry list of anglers, Hall of Famers, the Parsons, the Cabayas, the Chemos, the Babe Winklemans, the Al Linders, the Ron Linders of the world. They are all stopping by the Pontoon today. So don't go away. Stop in and listen. But let's get caught up on where you've been. Steve, how are you?
Hey, good, Chip. You know, it's been fun. We've been spending a lot of time getting Lake Commandos episodes done. Thomas Allen, don't say anything about that last trip that we had together. Chip, if you want to talk, we can have a little conversation on that. But hey, fall is here. We're trying to get finished up with taping, and we're working on some projects with Yamaha on some maintenance matters and things. But I'll be honest with you, I've had a very heavy heart this past week and the past couple weeks with Tom. With Tommy, and I sent him a text a couple Sundays ago telling him I was thinking about him, and his faith was super strong. But we're going to get into sharing some memories. But that's kind of been the update. What's going on with my world of late?
How about you, Thomas? You moved.
I did move, and actually, we were planning on fishing today, my son and I, but he's over here snacking. We're actually headed to Mark Kortz's house to pick up some stuff that I had stored there, kayaks, tree stands, waders, things like that. So we're actually in process of finishing our move. There's boxes all over our house in Brainerd. We're real happy to be there, and we're busy, so we're working through it.
And how about you, John?
We're actually on live now. Did you get the email?
I'm doing well, guys. Thankfully, I've been able to kind of get out and travel for work again. So last week I spent most of the week in Michigan. So we'll probably be doing less fishing and more getting on the road. But this weekend's looking good for getting out and just a little river fishing, wading fishing, which is, that can be very cathartic at times like this, just to kind of be you by yourself and your waders on a small little river catching smallmouth and walleye. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that. Went out a couple weekends ago, had a really good trip, and I just got an update before the show started that the river's looking clean and good. So I'm sure I'll be out there this weekend.
So I think it would be appropriate if we start, and I'm just going to lob this out here because I think we want to get into the purpose that we're here today. An incredible man passed away here day before yesterday, and it has left us all with a big void, and really, but at the same time inspired. And as sad as we are, if anybody's been like me, it's been this roller coaster of emotions where I get sad that Tommy has moved on, and but at the same time, I all of a sudden burst into laughter and think about an experience that I had with Tommy. And that's where we talked yesterday morning. It's like, you know what, we need to do a pontoon and invite all Tommy's friends on here and tell a few stories. Does anybody want to just briefly just tell me where you met Tommy and a quick story? Thomas?
Well, I've been thinking about this. I can't remember exactly where I met Tommy, but I know it was that I was with the Iowa Sportsman magazine at the time, and I was attending a bunch of Iowa trade shows, and I don't remember which one it was. It may have been the Cedar Rapids show. I don't know for sure. Either way, I won't ever forget he came up to me and started asking about our magazine, and I was spending a great deal of time getting that thing ready, and he made a comment about the hunting focus that we had in that particular issue, and we kind of hit it off right then, just talking about hunting. But it was a great progression into a wonderful relationship about just sharing ideas, ideals, passions, stories, and anything that kind of connected us there. But it's probably the best part of Tommy for me, or what that I'll always remember, is I left the Iowa Sportsman to pursue a freelance career, not knowing where it was going to go. And I moved my family from Fort Dodge, Iowa to Guthrie Center, kind of thinking it was going to be in the hunting side of things. And I honestly, I was looking for opportunities to hang sheetrock and put on shingles just to make ends meet. As you know, a freelance career in any industry is not an easy thing to start. Well, he knew I was struggling and had found ways to I guess spend money with me, shooting videos and writing stories, coming to some tournaments that he was fishing at and working with him. And that was really a turning point in my career, because one of my vehicles was on its way out. That's a whole nother story in its own. And I drove that car up to his house, and he's like, "You need to get rid of this piece of crap." I said, "I know it's a piece of junk," but it got me to and from a lot of those situations. In fact, I drove it to the national championship, FLW championship in Bismarck a few years ago. Well, it's been more than a few years, and that's kind of where I remember that was a joke with him. He called it the clown car, because we could get, my whole family plus our dog could get in and out of this little 4-door Toyota. And it's amazing what we could get in and out of there. But one thing I laughed at, Chip, you said this. What are you thinking about this making you laugh? Well, there was fast forward a couple of years, and Jimmy Bell, Ross Grothy, Tommy Scarless formed this organization called Wild 4 Outdoors, and they kind of deemed me the publicist. And so I was paid to be at these events representing those guys, creating content for them. Well, that also meant I was the boat jockey. So anytime Tommy needed gas, he's like, "Hey, here's my credit card, here's my keys, go fill up my truck and my boat." And his rule was, you always had to stop on some version of 11. So 22, 33. So if I'm putting gas in his truck, I had to stop at, we'll just say $27.11. It had to stop with 11. And we know his NPAA numbers, National Professional Angler Association number, is 11. So I asked him one day, "So what's this all about?" He goes, "Well, I'm not superstitious." I'm like, "You're absolutely superstitious." And anybody that ever fished with him or worked with him knew that he had these little quirks and superstitions about him. And that's the one I laughed about all day yesterday. Was I put so many gallons of gas in his truck and boat that ended in an 11 or 22 or something like that. I can't even count. But I knew he'd see that receipt, and if I didn't do it right, I'd hear about it. But that's just one of many memories that made me laugh the last couple of days.
Thomas, you wrote a great piece that was posted in NPAA and distributed through the National Professional Anglers Association yesterday, and maybe it's available on the InFisherman site as well. How can people see your beautiful write-up on Tommy?
Well, first of all, thank you. And it was really a big honor. Ross called me shortly after Tommy passed and asked if I'd do that, and it was a no question whether I would or not. It was a difficult day yesterday. I kind of still feel like I'm in a haze, recovering from that. Regardless, it's not about me, but I did produce that work with Pat and I with the National Professional Angler Association. You can see it posted all over on my Facebook page. It's around NPAA's Facebook page. I put it on the InFisherman Facebook page, so you can read that and please share it. And again, it's about Tommy and some of the experience time I had with him, and I know that a lot of us can relate to some of the stories we're about to hear and some of the perceptions that I put in that piece. And I do want to reiterate at the very end of that, I couldn't help myself and remember how Tommy was close to the last boat in line at all of these events over all those years. And I know dang well yesterday morning up in heaven, when the good Lord put on the walleye tournament having Tommy Scarlett there, he was probably almost late again.
Hey guys, we got Babe Winkleman on board here today. Babe, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Steve. My pleasure.
I know you've had a history with Tommy over the years, and maybe you could share a couple memories of Tommy, and would enjoy hearing your stories.
Well, I've been thinking about Tommy since I heard about this. We were pretty close, but we got close from a different reason. When he was first getting into fishing and trying to figure out a way to make a living out of it, I kind of became his mentor and his friend. He'd show up at sport shows and always come to me and find me wherever the hell I was and see what I was doing that night. Well, nothing. Let's go play pool and go out to a bar together. All right. So I don't know how many times Tommy and I went and played pool in different cities across the damn country. And we'd sit there and talk business and talk fishing and stuff at the same time. And then talk, what could he do? What could he do different? He was always thinking and always looking. He had a very enterprising mind, a lot of common sense, full of shit a lot of times. And you get to know that about him and take it with a wonderful grain of salt. He was just one of those special people who was very, very good at giving and very good at earning whatever he wanted to get. He would bust his butt after it if this was what he'd set his mind to.
Yeah.
And I thought about memories. Well, I was the guy that introduced Optima batteries to the world, and through us, or at least that they did that. And for about 10 years, we put on a tournament up here in Brainerd.
Yes.
And for Optima, and we'd bring in 10 professionals, Optima professionals, and then 10 people from across the United States. And they'd each get to fish with one of the pros. And Tommy was one of those pros. And if I recall correctly, Tommy, well, 1 year I know he won it. And he just made it in time that he wasn't flagged for being late. And he had the winning stringer of damn fish. Wow. You know, so gave him major crap about that. You're going to have to update your watch. You're going to have to update something, Tommy, because you're cutting it too close.
Hey, babe, do you remember the old boats that had the little digital clock within the boat, and it would always run and drain your battery between tournaments? I'm actually glad those aren't part of it anymore. Hey, Kai, 1 second. Hey, Kai, could you make sure that Gary Parsons, you reach out to Gary and get his, he needs the link again. Just got a text from him. All right. So, babe, have you been in the boat with Tommy?
Yes. Walleye fishing. A couple of different times. And lakes around the Brainerd area here. But that was the only times I ever really got in the boat with him. We did that one day we did some bass fishing too. Tommy focused a lot on walleyes, as you know. But that was the only time. We spent more times on other things. For example, at one point in time when things were changing in his business, Tommy decided he was going to become a motivational speaker. I don't know if he ever talked with you guys about that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I spent hours talking with him on that because I've done a bunch of that in my life. For
Lyme's.
Well, for Lyme disease is one thing, but I've done it for, painting contractors, general contractors, all kinds of different businesses, half a dozen different church groups across the country, all kinds of different things. You know, and each one of them is different. Each one is a motivational speaker or a speech in its own way, but it's got to be unique to that particular group that you're dealing with. And you get a group of construction guys well, you can get a little bit hazy around the edges of your words. You get into a church group, that's a whole different cat.
Yeah.
So
Babe, Tommy really did get into inspirational speaking, but he did a lot of it through social media.
Yes, I know.
I mean, especially once his illness was really, when he announced his illness, I think he really united a lot of people with what he was saying.
Oh, he did. He had that kind of personality. You knew, listening to Tommy for just a little bit, this guy's sincere.
Yeah.
You know, it was what you see is what you get. There was no hidden agenda there. And that's probably the aspect of his personality that made him as strong and great of a friend to all of us that he was, are those things. And people could pick up on it with Tommy pretty easy. But I told him, I said, this motivational speaking business, you don't know what the hell you're up against there. That ain't just a bunch of fishermen over here, outdoors people. That's the whole world and the best of the best that are taking up all of that stuff. And some of them get really big fees. He said, I know, that's why I want to do it. And I said, man, it's going to be Mount Everest to climb barefoot. It's just going to be difficult. If that's what you want to do, go after it. But I'm just telling you. And then he decided to do it through social media and so forth, because breaking into it when you don't have some kind of, I don't know what the hell it takes to break into that. But specifically, I know what caused my situation. It wasn't because I was known as a motivational speaker, but I had done a bunch of that in an earlier business career as well. So it just happened, I guess.
Well, Babe, thank you so much for joining us. We've got a number of guests coming through, but we really appreciate you stopping by and sharing some memories of Tommy today.
Well, I know that all of us, probably last night and probably tonight and more days after that, will think of 100 other things we should have said, maybe could have said. But Tommy, I'll tell you this, man, you left your mark on the world. You left your mark at least on America and not a lot of people. And it was always a good mark. You were always a good person. May you rest in peace and have God take care of you and look over your family in the process.
Thank you so much, Babe.
Thank you, Babe.
Babe, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome. We got a board meeting next week, right?
Yeah.
See you then, Babe.
All righty, man. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Wow. That really that touches you right there. Absolutely, John. It really does. It just tells you that how many people this man touched. And what I love what's going on here with this pontoon is, if you guys see in this feed here, so if you're listening, the comments, we can see these comments. They're coming up live. Keep them coming. Send out messages to Tommy, Michelle, his boys, the family. We're all here for you. Part of this day is really just that. It's a tribute to Tommy, and we want to share our experiences. And I want to know, Steve Panaz, what was the first thing Tommy Scarlett ever said to you?
So years ago, when North American was involved with MWC, I actually went down to fish a tournament, and I think it was fishing with Ted Takasaki, and we're in the hotel room getting ready for the night before, and in walks this dude that I had no idea who he was. And he walks over to I had set some tackle over on the hotel table. And the first thing I ever heard him say was, "Who's the dumb son of a bitch who put all the soft plastics in the same box?" and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I mean, I really didn't. I turned around and said, I'm doing it on purpose to mix some custom colors. And the truth was, I had no clue what I was doing. But that was my introduction to Tommy. And we've had a chance to really form a strong friendship. He's been on Lake Commandos a couple different times, and it was really interesting to be in the boat with him, because there was a sense of calm with him in the boat. You would think that with his personality being big and loud, but when he got in the boat, he was laser focused, and I'll just never forget. He had the boat control at one time during the taping, and just the way he handled the boat. And he turned to me, he says, a lot of people don't realize that when you're fishing grass, with the wind. You want to cast with the wind or against the wind because it lays parallel to where you're fishing. And he had all these little things that were just pretty cool. And the other thing that I remember a lot about Tommy is, you guys know about my son Pearson. Tommy really embraced Pearson. We spoke at length back in August or April, and he said his favorite photo he's ever seen was Pierce sitting in front of the pizza display at the grocery store because pizza is his life, and he thought that was the funniest thing that ever happened. So that would really be good. Hey, we've got Scott Arms with Ranger Boats on board, and Tommy was a long time Ranger was a long time sponsor. Scott, great to see you. And how's things going down at Ranger? And can you share a couple memories of Tommy?
You bet. Things are good here in Flippin. We've a lot of changes going on with the Bass Pro purchase, but everything's good. We're plugging away forward. I miss my buddy Chip. I see Chip on here. We've been kind of quarantined down here. Springfield and our area is pretty hot spot for the COVID-19, so I hadn't been able to get to any tournaments since the Classic. So getting a little bit of cabin fever here. But Tommy's a great guy. It's hard to believe that he fought for as long as he did. Honestly, I remember him calling Kim Ott coming into my office. For those of you that know, Kim Ott worked here for almost 40 years at Ranger, handled all the pro staff orders and things of that. So really knew Tommy, but came in my office and was the one that actually told me about Tommy's diagnosis, and it was pretty bleak. But you know what? He called me about 2 days later. He and I talked, and man, he was 100% on board with Jesus and knew that he had a plan for his life. And the last 17 months, Tommy fought the good fight, and I don't know if I could have done that. There's a lot of people that do that, but first time I met Tommy, I'll never forget. I've been working at Ranger probably about 2 or 3 years, and I was asked to go work service for the MWC event. Chip, what was the guy's name that was the old MWC? His tagline was something like
Bob Kaskowski?
Yes. Kaskowski.
Yeah, like
don't
be a stranger, run a Ranger was his tagline. Like, we'll never forget that. And first time I ever met Tommy, and he comes rolling in to the service yard, and who are you? And I said, I'm Scott Arms from Ranger. Hey, I'm Tommy Scarlett, and puts his hand out, and that had to be either 2000 or 2001 in Escanaba, Michigan. And I'll never forget. From then on, we were tight. Had a nickname. I have several nicknames, but one of them was Frosty, for Frosty the Snowman. Had it for a long, long time, and that's all he would ever call me. Probably one of the best memories was not too long ago, honestly, Chip. It was Lake of the Woods and NWT Championship, and you were doing a live remote for NWT Facebook Live, and we were going around, and we had a catered dinner, and things were just. I think at one time Tommy took the phone from you with the camera and just took charge of the whole thing.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe. Tommy was, he kind of was hard to loosen up, but the guy always had a smile. There's a picture I found on FLW of Tommy, and it's just him smiling, and just that smile, he always had it. Didn't matter. Through thick and thin, the guy was smiling. He always asked, "What can I do for you?" Always. And it didn't have anything to do with a sponsorship. Had nothing to do with him being sponsored by Ranger. It was, he wanted to know how the kids were, how the family was, how business. Man, what can I do to help? If you ever need anything. And there's a lot of people out here in these days and times that don't, that's not their persona. That's not what they do. And, it's, we've lost a great one in Tommy, man. We have, but you know what? The memories and this, Steve and Chip and John, you guys, I appreciate y'all reaching out to me and asking me to be on, because it's an honor to be on here with some of the folks that are going to be on today.
Well, thank you so much for coming by. We're going to switch over to Gary Parsons. But Scott, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much, guys.
Be good, Scott. See
Bye.
y'all.
Well, Gary, thank you for
Yes,
joining.
hi guys. How are you?
There he is. What's going on?
Hey, GP.
Gary.
Hey guys.
Hey, I know you've got you've got some Tommy stories going back over the years. Would you mind sharing just a couple of them?
No. I'd like to talk about Tommy. He was kind of a force of nature. So to celebrate his passing is an honor, and I'm glad that you guys asked me to join. So there's quite a few Tommy stories. Personally, I had a little bit of a different relationship with him, I think. And that was one in which, since when he started tournament fishing, I was already there and already established. And so where I've read on Facebook over the last couple of days that Tommy reached out to many different anglers when they started and offered to help them, my relationship was a little bit different. And he basically earned his respect in the tournament world. And, I was maybe a little bit more of a mentor or a business person that he could roll ideas off. And so we had that type of relationship. I can remember a few tournaments that I fished with him where he just stood out from the crowd. I fished
But Gary,
an event on the Mississippi River. Tom wasn't allowed. I mean, he was fishing so many tournaments at that time, he didn't get any chance to practice. And he came pulling in to the event literally with no practice. And he went to a wing dam within sight of me, and where I was fishing a deep channel edge, and I watched him literally blow the tournament away in one day. And that was a 2-day event. He came back, and since he kind of had established, his positioning on that wing dam, he wasn't challenged very much by anyone else, and he literally closed the door on that tournament. So here's a guy who was fishing back to back tournaments, and then he comes rolling into the Mississippi River event and just crushes the field. And these are all like, I don't even remember if it was a PWT event or if it was an NWT event, but it was a very high profile event, and he just crushed the field. And he was probably the most formidable river angler that I've known. And he ran with a bunch of river studs. I mean, he ran with guys on the Mississippi that were incredible anglers. And in many cases, in competition, he would beat them. Another event that I remember him fishing was Green Bay, and he didn't do very well the first day. And we were talking the evening of the first day. And literally he had been, almost the whole field had been fishing in a big mud flat area. So occasionally during the course of the day, you would see other boats. And on the second day, I didn't see Tommy at all. But yet he came in that evening and he had a monster bag. I mean, it was huge. And I believe he pulled himself up into the money. And I talked to him that night. I said, hey, I didn't see you at all today. And he says, oh, I was fishing completely by myself. I said, did you practice out there? He said, no. He said, I just decided that I was going to go out and start over, and throw all my practice away, throw everything away, and that I was going to start over and see if I could fish some fish that weren't pressured and, see if I could get a big bag. And he did. And that was just,
But you and I, Gary, shared some stories yesterday about the competitive nature of Tommy and his, and how when you were on the water and a fish, sometimes he's a competitor, man. And there was times you bumped heads, right? I mean, you got in there and you had to dog it out. But as soon as the day was over, we could let bygones be bygones.
You're going to dig dirt, aren't you, Chip?
Yes, I am. It's not dirt, though. Part of it shines on how wonderful man he was.
No, Tommy was one of the most intense competitors that I've ever known. And he took the sport very seriously. I mean, he really did. And, you know, for the most part, he would be off fishing his own fish. And in many cases, that's what I try to do, if at all possible. And there was a tournament that we were talking about, that Chip and I were talking about. And we basically got a little bit close to each other during the course of that day. And I wasn't real happy about it because I was there first. So we had words on the water. And in typical Tommy fashion, he stood up for himself. And you know, we butted heads. And I think those of you who know me and have fished tournaments with me, you know, if I'm all by myself and you come into my lane, I'm going to probably get a little upset with you. And, you know, I don't know as if that's a proud thing or not, but it's the intensity of yeah. And Tom was the epitome of that. He wouldn't take crap from anybody. And it didn't matter that, you know, I had been in the game a little bit longer and was a little more established than he was. He wasn't going to take any crap from me, and he didn't. And in the next tournament, you know, we hardly ever would see each other on the water during events. And the next tournament was an open water event, and he thought that I got a little bit too close to him, and so it was an exchange. It was basically the opposite effect. He read me the right act, and you know, the one thing about Tom is, I think that anyone who competed with him for years had those types of run-ins occasionally. But the one thing that he always did is, at the end of the day, he would consider the event. He would know that in the heat of the moment that everybody has those types of times. If you're a high-profile competitive angler, you're going to be emotional and you're going to be very focused in what you're doing. And he would always come back and make up. Tom and I probably butted heads, I don't know, 4 or 5 times during the course of his career. And yet we were still, you know, the next day we were best buddies again, and we were still probably best friends when it comes right down to it. We would spend hours and hours talking business. And I don't think that he had anyone else that he could talk sponsorships and values and those types of things with. There's just not that many guys around that you can share that information with. And Tom and I were pretty darn tight when it came to that. So, yeah, Chip, we had our moments, but we also had special moments of camaraderie that are unparalleled. And then, I wouldn't trade him for the world. He was a very, very close friend, and I'm going to miss him a lot.
That's what I'm getting at there, Gary. Thank you very much for sharing it. I think we've got a number of guests here, but I appreciate you taking time of our day to honor one heck of a walleye fisherman, and it's your time is appreciated. So that was Gary Parsons, Hall of Fame angler, joining us.
Could I add one more thing, guys, quickly?
Go for it, man.
Would it be possible to add? Yeah. When Tom said he was going to fish crappies, I basically told a lot of the people in the basket.
Look at Thomas smile.
Yep. When he said that, I basically told my sponsors and stuff from the South, I said, you better watch out. He is going to absolutely crush that field. I said, I honestly believe there's 30 walleye guys up here that could compete in any venue in the United States. And Tom's first venture into the crappie world, he wins the world championship. That is the quality of this man. He was one of the best anglers that I have ever seen, and it doesn't really matter what fish he was fishing for. He's the only person, I think, in the history of professional fishing that have won titles, major titles like that, in 2 different venues. And I have no doubt if he went after Pat, he'd have done the same damn thing. So
you got that right. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Take
Good to
care,
have
my
you.
friend.
Good to have you here.
Guys, thanks for having me on board.
Do we have somebody? Let's let Gary go, and I'm gonna ask Kai if we've got somebody queued up. Otherwise, I want to know, John Bala, how did you meet Tommy?
Do we have somebody queued or no? I can do it real quick.
Give it to you. Danny's right there. Looks like Danny's coming up next, but you got it. Go.
2 minutes.
Hey guys. Hey Danny.
Yeah.
We're gonna put on hold for just a second. We've got Al Lindner on the phone right now, and I'd like to. He's calling in from. Hey Al, are you on Mille Lacs right now?
So you kicking Danny to the curb?
Al.
Oh, you're on North Long Lake, and you're out with your brother, I suspect.
Yeah. We're just rolling spinner baits and swim jigs over flats, catching largemouth. That just about 5 minutes ago, I had 1 3 3/4. So,
Oh, that's
the bite indeed.
that's awesome. Hey, I know you've got a long history, and Ron has had a long history with Tommy Scarless. Would you be willing to kind of share a couple stories with us?
Well, I just first want to say we're thankful to be a part of Tommy's going home party. That's for sure. We go way back. We met him during the early days when the professional walleye trail was taking shape, and I'm not knowing many of the competitors, just like Gary, who just got off the line here, some of the biggest names in the sport fishing tournament industry as far as walleye fishing goes. And without a doubt, he was an intense competitor. He fished to win, and his passion was there. He had huge passion, and he kept an open mind. He was always looking to learn more. How do I get better at my game? That was his outlook on life, and everything. What can I do to get better? And his track record in the world of walleye fishing and just fishing in general, really speaks for itself. And I got a real appreciation for anybody that is extremely passionate about what they do. And then when you add incredible talent with it, those are the kind of people that move mountains, man. And Tommy was one of those people. Also, he was a phenomenal representative for our industry and his marketing partners. He was with for many years. And like I said, that part of Tommy, I'll never forget. I appreciate that. And also, he was a man of faith, and he was not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. And for me, that's the second big part of what I really appreciated in his life and times, his testimony during a challenge that hopefully none of us will have to face. We held strong, shared his faith on a regular basis, mighty man of God. And those are two things. One of the best walleye tournament fishermen this country has ever seen, and his faith level. These two things really resonated with me. And one of the more memorable moments that I had with Tommy, and many years ago, shortly, not too long into the PWT, but he was growing in his faith. And we would talk quite a bit after tournaments and things as he, just like I said, growing in his faith. And I had an opportunity. I invited him to speak to the church that I go to here in Brainerd, Minnesota. And he came and he spoke at our church, and then a men's banquet after that, and it was open. And he shared from his heart at that point things that when you come to an event like that at a church, from a spiritual end and a fishing end, the challenges that he faced in his career and he shared some things from his heart that I never knew about the man. And you'll only hear that at something like an event like that. You're not going to hear it on the street in the general flow of things. And there was a few things that I don't feel comfortable saying what they were, but they left an amazing impact on me and the man that he was and grew to be. And he exemplified everything that I think is important, in life today. And that's all I really have to say about him. But just a tremendous person. I'll never forget that evening and that next day, spending that much time with him and hearing a personal side of him that you a real personal side, the nitty gritty from the time he was a kid growing up to be one of the biggest names in the sport. So he is a legend. We will be, all of us in this industry will miss him. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just thankful to be here for a moment and just say for my no more pain, no more misery, my brother.
Yeah.
You're in a better place.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Al. I know, is Ron with you as well?
Yeah, he is. Hang on a second. Hey.
Hey, Ron, how are you? We got Ron Lindner on the phone, guys. I know you have a story about Tommy, and it doesn't involve you.
Al mentioned, by the way, Al covered a lot of what I was going to cover because we met related to Tommy at the same time. It all revolved around our meeting Tommy at the professional walleye trail, and also he showed up at what was the beginning of the spiritual sections, the Fishers of Men, which would take place before the tournament. We always set a night, and Tommy was there, and he shared many a testimony. I mentioned, Al mentioned the testimony that he did in his church, but he also did a testimony at one of these Fishers of Men, and my wife was there. She was traveling with me at the time, and we would go to the PWT, the Professional Walleye Trail events together, and she would sit in. And along the line, she would draw Tommy, and then she watched his fishing, and he became her favorite just like you get you might become for a basketball fan, you would be a Michael Jordan or something like that.
Is Al driving to the next spot? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Al's been talking. He's already driving the boat to the next spot.
Representing, and it's one thing for you. She said, "Well, I like him. That's it." When he would be at the weigh, it would be, "Go, Tommy, go, Tommy." He's coming. Come on, Tommy. And she became her personal favorite pro to follow. And 2 years later, she didn't show up for all the events, but when I would call home or somebody would call us, it would be, "Well, how did Tommy do?" You know, did he do great?
Ron, this is
Tommy had a bad one this time, and she would pray for him also. She did a lot of praying for him in these last.
That's awesome.
Can Ron hear me?
Hey, Ron, Chip Lear has a question for you.
Yeah.
Are we on speaker with Al as well?
Al is right here.
Are we on speaker, Ron?
Well, no, he's not, but Al's right there with him.
Okay, so here's my question. I heard a podcast earlier this winter where I believe Al told the host that the question from the host was, if you could have a Hollywood star play you in a movie, right? Who would you pick? Al said there's only one person who can do a Lindner better than a Lindner, and his name's Tommy Scarlett. I want to know if that's true.
He did Al imitations, and they were fantastic. They were absolutely fantastic. He caught his mannerism. Now, when you are from Chicago, you don't think that you have a Chicago accent, but apparently we really do. And Al carried that with him. He's slowly lost it over the years. But it was in the PWT years, it was still very, very strong.
Hey, Ron, I need to point out to you guys have not lost it. Well, guys, Ron, I know you're out fishing with Al, and we'd just like to thank you for stopping by today and sharing some memories about Tommy, and we really appreciate that. So have a great time on the water.
Okay, let me close with this one thing. The Lord, he had a soft spot for fishermen. His apostles, 5 were full-time fishermen, 2 additional ones were part-time fishermen. That means 7 of the 12. So he absolutely had a soft spot for fishermen. And consequently, he would have had a soft spot for Tommy. And I heard somebody mention that, well, don't worry, Tommy. In the Lord's book, you're a keeper and you're going to the live well. We're keeping you. And another person mentioned not only is he a keeper, he's probably going on the wall because his faith is the mark. And it is with that. Tommy's is strong and he is one that goes up on the wall. That's it. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Al.
You guys, you're on out.
I gotta say, I was just thinking there was a time when I first met Tommy, he did a Ron Lindner impression, and it was better than Ron Lindner.
There isn't a doubt about it. I'm gonna digress real quick 1 second back to the early days of the PWT Bismarck Arena, crowds full, it's cheering like crazy early in Tommy's career, right? And that was the days that all the lights and the stage and the sounds and all this stuff would take place. And Tommy told me the story 1,000 times. And it's all coming together, and he's just about to be the one that's going to drive his boat around the arena. Lights are going to flash. It's all going to happen and get crazy. And if he's getting ready to go into the arena, Ron Lindner walks up to his boat, leans over his boat, and Tommy's thinking, wow, Ron Lindner's coming to talk to me. And he says, Tommy, I really need you in there. He says, the crowd's flat. They're terrible. They need to get jacked up. And Tommy's looking at Ron. Ron's like, can you do it? Can you get in there and jack him up? And Tommy's thinking, Ron really needs me to pull this together, because at the end of the sentence, he goes, we need you, man. The big boys are coming in right behind you.
Hey, we've got a very special guest here right now with Danny Thompson with Garmin. And Danny, I know you've been working with Tommy over the years. And by the way, if that beard gets any longer, you're going to look like Thomas Allen. I know deer season. Is that the deer season beard going?
It's kind of what we're going for right now is deer season beard. I think I'll maybe consider getting rid of it around then.
The beard chooses the man. Tommy would tell you that too.
Oh yeah.
Tommy was a huge deer hunter. But Danny, thanks for your patience, by the way. I know you've got a story or two to share about Tommy, and please feel free to tell the stories.
Yeah, so I started working in the industry maybe about 12 years ago or so, and actually worked for a big retailer, Cabela's, back in the day, and I did a lot of events, and I'd always be hanging around trying to get people to come give seminars for me and that kind of stuff. And I was down in the Owatonna store for a while, and Tommy said, yeah, I'll come in, I'll do a seminar, and gave a great seminar as to be expected. And he even did his Al Lindner impression during the seminar, which was great. He had the whole crowd laughing, the whole store laughing. But the thing that was super cool to me is I was just a young kid, new to kind of working in the industry. And, Tommy was just such a nice guy and just so caring. And, he was kind of talking to me after a seminar about fishing. And he's like, well, where do you like to fish? I was telling him, I love to fish Mille Lacs. And, fish are biting up there right now. We're kind of talking about that. And he goes, well, what do you catch them on? And I brought him over. I was showing him these jigs, and he must have bought 6, 7, 10 packs of them, and little did he know if they'd ever work or if I even had a clue what I was talking about. But it made me feel so good about, someone like Tommy Scarlett is taking my tip on walleye fishing and going to Mille Lacs Lake and trying to catch some walleyes. And it was just one of those things that I always kind of remembered about him, and he was always such a great guy to work with through that kind of stuff. And I know some of you guys know too, and it's kind of hard to talk about. My grandma just passed away an hour ago, so I'm a little down right now too. But also Tommy actually got the same exact brain tumor in the same exact location within a month of my father-in-law. And so, during the last year of his life, and actually my father-in-law passed away this winter from it. And that type of tumor, there's just nothing they can do, and it was kind of a hard thing to go through and trying to be, a strong person for my wife and family and that kind of stuff. And, I talked to Tommy a lot about it. And at first I was just mad, and I was mad at the cancer, and I was mad at the tumor, and this is so sad. And he kind of just brought it into a different light that, you know what, you're not mad at the tumor. This is God's plan, and he has a reason for this. And just kind of bringing that understanding to me, it just, it helps so much. It was just the kind of person he was. Here he is dealing with it himself, and he's on the phone trying to help me through a situation I'm going through. And, it was just really, really says a lot about who he was and what he stood for and that kind of stuff, and I just, this is the kind of stuff like that you just never forget about. I mean, I've met a lot of great people in the fishing industry, and despite all of the great achievements he had and all the things he had accomplished, I think what I remember him most for, and what I will remember him most for, is just that caring side of him. He was my friend. He was a great person and leader and example of what you'd want to be, more so than just an excellent fisherman, like a lot of people know him as. And, kind of one of the last times I got to spend with him, he was changing everything over in his boat to Garmin. He was going to get live scope on his boat. He was going to go chase these crappies down south. And he was so confident. He knew he could go down there and he could win. And I got to spend the whole day with him. We were down in his shop. He's got all these big whitetail mounts up in his shop. And we sat there and we talked about him. And he kind of took me into the side room. And this shop, and if you guys have been in there, I mean, he had trophies and plaques and awards from fishing. I mean, it rivals nobody else that I know of. Just an unbelievable amount of accomplishments hanging in that room. It was almost overwhelming. And, me and him both being very passionate deer hunters, we talked about deer hunting a lot. And, one of the things is when he fell out of the stand and he broke his back, and we kind of were talking about that. And, he wasn't going to let that end him. He wasn't going to just be like, I had a serious injury and I'm done. And he kind of like, he collected lures. He was big into collecting these lures, and he'd put them into these different shadow boxes and these different pegs. And he literally was telling me how he'd grab one lure and he'd walk it over to the peg, and he'd take everything he got to lift that lure, hang it on a piece of pegboard or into that shadow box. And he'd go sit down and he'd have to rest for an hour, 2 hours till he could do it again. And one by one, slowly built his strength up enough to be able to come back and fish and do all the things he did, even after that injury. And he just never, ever gave up. And I think if that's anything we can take away, is just that winning attitude and that ability to just be so disciplined and so, passionate about what we do, that it will get you through. And, there's so many great examples. There's been so many great examples out there this last couple of days, but I mean, he truly was an inspirational person.
Amazing story, Danny. Very sorry to hear about your grandmother, and I know your father-in-law, your passing was very, very hard on you this year. But wow. Well, hey, thanks for coming in today. Thanks for
having me, guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate being a part of it.
Yes.
Thanks, Danny.
We'll talk soon.
God bless, Danny.
God bless, Danny. Hey, Kai, we have a short video we can run with Tommy. Would you mind running that? He talks a little bit about the first time he ever fished.
Chad, these things started off with a...
All is what I like that one.
You found it?
Which one are you looking for?
One fry. He shares his first fishing story.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, just give me 1 second.
I know he actually shared this story on stage and actually part of his Hall of Fame induction. But this was on a Lake Commandos trip a few years ago, actually.
Steve, I gotta upload it in there. Why don't we let's get Bruce in here. Let's let Bruce talk, and I'll have that video ready right after Bruce. All right.
We love the stories.
Sweet.
We do. We love the stories.
We love the stories. There's a lot of. I mean, that's the one, the constant that you keep hearing of him as you watched all the scroll yesterday on social media was this just constant feed of the similarities between the amount of impact he made when he met. In fact, almost everybody's story is the day I met Tommy Scarlett, right? I mean, and they all start with that.
And they met. I mean, 25 years ago, I remember the day I met him.
Absolutely. So we got Bruce DeShano coming up here, the
Hi.
offshore tackle.
Had some great speakers up there.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce.
So, Bruce, talk a little bit about your company and how you worked with Tommy over the years.
I'll guarantee you $20 for every dollar you give me, or you can fire me. He lived in Iowa. Iowa didn't know what a planer board was. So the next year I fired him. Obviously, I rehired him, and he's a great friend, a great man, and he's going to be greatly missed. But he's the only pro fisherman that paid me when he won a tournament. He'd walk off the stage, and if Nick was there or I was there, he'd give us a hondo, as he always said. He said, because without you, I wouldn't have won this. So we always laughed about that, and he owes me $50. So I'm gonna, in the Hall of Fame, I got $5.
Yeah. So, Bruce, your video is your internet connection must be fairly weak, but we can hear you pretty well. Are you still there? Well, I think we actually lost him.
We lost
him.
I got the video going.
Okay, let's play the video real quick, and then we'll bring in. Oh, Bruce, you're back.
I'm back. I don't know what happened. No talent in the country.
Yeah, we're just must be your internet connection. But so he owes you $50. I don't think you're going to get it.
No, I don't think so. But I'll excuse him for that. I'll get it. But I hope it's a long time before I do. He's up right now teaching people that didn't get a chance to fish how to fish. I know that. But one of the other things that I remember most about him is when I fished with him, I'd say, how far back do you want it? He'd say 65 or 74. And I said, where do you get these numbers from? You know, I use 30, 40, 50. He said they all add up to 11. 6 and 5 is 11. 7 and 4 is 11. So that's how he could remember that. And something I'm always going to have in the future, he left an awesome Bloody Mary recipe with my son. And that's about $100 to make one of these Bloody Marys. But they are the best. So I will never forget. Every time I have a Bloody Mary, I will be thinking of my good friend Tommy. And it was such an honor to be inducted in the Hall of Fame with him this spring.
Yeah.
And
congratulations on your own induction.
Thank you. It was really a thrill. And my father, my son, and my grandson were all there. So that made it even more special. And to be with Tommy. So it's just been that was a great year for a start, and then everything went to heck, and now we've got this. But I really, as everybody has said, we can't say enough. He touched everybody. He was always sincere, whether he was on stage or you were sitting back at the end of the day after fishing, and he was always there for you. He'd work half the night to help you put things together, and he did holler at Nick and I when we were crappie fishing. We brought crappies in. He was mad at it. He said, you don't keep a crappie in tournament time. You might need that 11-inch crappie and stuff. So we're headed out Monday. We will see everybody Tuesday and say our final goodbye on Wednesday. So, Tommy, we love you. My whole family loves you. And rest in peace, my friend. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll see you there.
Thank you so much. We'll see you down there. Already. That's Bruce DeShano, guys. He's he fished planer boards. You know his gear, and I know Tommy was a big fan of his product line, and we really appreciate him coming in. Hi, we have who else we got up next? Or do you have that video ready?
That video is all set to go.
Real quick.
Tommy, what's your most monumental fish story? The most monumental fish story, most monumental fish in my career?
Monumental, whatever story sticks in your mind more than anything else.
You know, and it's kind of a long one, but I was young, probably 4, 3. I think I was 3, and my mom was tired of us kids wearing her out. And I can remember with a bun hairdo. Now, this was close to 50 years ago. And she's out in the garden digging up worms. And my mom was a farm girl. I always thought she was just a really cool and super lady, still do to this day. And I asked her what she was doing, and she says, I'm taking you boys fishing. Long story short, we loaded into the woodpecker-sided station wagon, the kind that they had with
Yeah.
Vacation with Chevy
Ford
Chase.
Esquire.
Yep, the woodpecker sides, And we went out, we went to this little pond near our home, and we started fishing, and I caught a sunfish, a little sunfish, but she let me keep it. And I remember running back to the car to get a Revereware copper boiler pot to put it in. That's how we were going to keep it alive. And we went home, and by golly, she cleaned that fish, she fried it, and she fed it to me. And she taught me you have to eat what you catch or let it go. You never want to waste anything. And I'll never forget what a big man I felt like eating that little teeny fish.
Is that right?
And that was kind of the goose that laid the golden egg. I was hooked on fishing for the rest of my life just because my mom decided to get us out of the house.
Wow.
So I'm sure it probably surprises you that I wouldn't talk about a 11-pound walleye that won a tournament or a championship or a points total. But
No, it's got to start somewhere, doesn't it? It's amazing what you remember those days.
Thanks, Mom. Love you. Boys.
Must be a good spot.
Hey! I saw him first.
Oh, there's the bass right there, baby.
Woo! Here's mine's going to jump.
Oh, you got a giant too.
Oh!
A double.
A double. A double of giants.
Oh, man.
How monumental is that?
That's awesome.
You know what, though? Mine isn't as big as yours, but I'll take it.
Hey, that's a great fish. What a way to end the day, man.
Look at that. 2 giants. This one's full of food. Good
That
fish.
is nice fish.
Doesn't seem like he's still here, guys. It's incredible. Incredible. Oh. Kai, who's up next? Scott, how are you?
The man, the myth, the legend. If you don't know who Scott Gorvigan is, Scott Gorvigan was there when they invented walleye fishing, tournament fishing, took it all the way to the height of it all. They invented a big tournament with a big check of $300,000, and you take it all home for yourself. Drops the mic, walks away, and says, "Have a nice day. I'm going to start Wired to Fish."
As Tommy Scarlett would say, every chicken finds a June bug every once in a while, right? So he always shared lots of barnyard analogies about fishing, and I certainly do appreciate it. And I thank you guys for including me in this tribute to Tommy, because he was a special guy. I'm absolutely amazed as I've gone through the tributes of and I shouldn't be amazed, but through the tributes to Tommy, is everybody remembers the first time they met him. Okay? And you think of all the people that we fish with and all the people that we see out there, and everybody remembers the first time they met Tommy, and me included. I remember I met him the very first time was up at Lake of the Woods for a PWT tournament, and it was one of the first events he'd ever fished. Stepped up, talked to Marty and myself. He said, "Hey, I know you two twins." Introduced himself to Marty and I, and he said, "I'm going to make a difference in this fishing industry. I'm going to make a living in it." And that was the understatement that he made, was the fact that he did make a difference. He made a great living in this industry, and he was the Johnny Appleseed of fishing, because regardless if he represented your sponsor or his sponsors, the people that were out there in the fishing industry, he represented everybody, regardless if they're on his shirt or not. And that's a special person to have that type of effect on fishermen across the country. And I firmly believe, regardless of what species of fish that Tommy chased, what tournament levels he would have fished, he would have been at the top, regardless, because that's the passion that he had for it.
Awesome. Hey, Scotty, we've got a lineup of people, and I know you were waiting in queue. So thank you for sharing this, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing some of the messages.
Absolutely. Humbling experience, and God bless to all those people that have been affected by Tommy. he's shining over all of us.
Yeah.
Before you, one shout out to Scotty for Jason's piece that he wrote on Tommy yesterday that ended up on the Wired to Fish site, so we can direct people to get over to the Wired to Fish to put together a nice little piece there, and that was awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
That's a very competitive man that was there when all of the in the height of the innovation era, I call it, in the walleye game.
Hey, we've got Pat and I in the with the NPAA and tournament fisherman himself. Pat, you've known Tommy for a long time. You've been on the board with him with NPAA, if I'm correct.
That is correct. I not only was on the board with him at NPAA, when I first got involved with NPAA, I was elected or appointed president, and Tommy was our vice president. It was an honor to do that with him. But those were some days I'll never forget. He was amazingly strategic. There's things about Tommy that the general public don't know. One of the most intelligent people I've ever dealt with on the business side, and he was competitive in every aspect of his life. That NPAA was one example, but I did some other business with him. Plus, I became very, very close friends with him to the point where I never had a brother. He was as close as I could get. Wow. He was a good man. So had some fun times. We were all talking about the first time, and this wasn't the first time I'd ever met him, but I got a plaque on the wall where I got a second place finish in an MWC back in 1995, which is the first year I'd ever fished the MWCs or anything competitive. We were on fish. We were staying in Hoyles in Saginaw Bay, and Tommy cornered me at Hoyles and tried to get some information from me because Tommy was a little competitive. I don't know if you noticed that. It's a little. He liked to do well, and he wasn't doing so well, and I was. And he cornered me, and he thought that he had a rookie cornered. Little did he know I was older than he was, in some ways wiser. And I'll never forget him pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get some info. And finally I said, Tommy, I don't know how well you think you know me, but you don't know me well enough to know that I'm not going to give this up. But at some point, I'm going to regret that because I know at some point I'm going to need something from you, and you're not going to give it up to me either. So it was one of those things where we both agreed that maybe it's time to back off. But he was unbelievably competitive, and he made some tremendous impacts with the sport. After he broke his back, he came the year after, that would have been 2018, to fish the NWT at Menominee. And he was really worried about the big water in his back. And he asked me, I wasn't fishing the event that year, he asked me to come help him. So I came over to Menominee, and I took him out in his boat, and we were both running Ray Marine product at the time, and I had learned some stuff using that product that kind of set it apart. We could mark fish going 30, 35 miles an hour, and I knew exactly what they were. And we ran around Green Island and did what I called mark 'em, catch 'em, and saved a waypoint, turned around, said, Tommy, cast right there with his shiver minnow. He got up front, 2 pumps on that rod. He had about an 8-pounder. Landed that fish. He turned around and gave me the biggest hug. I'll never forget that because he was so concerned about being competitive at that event, even though nobody expected him to be. But that was him. He always wanted to win. And, those are the memories I'll never forget.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Chip, you got a question?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Pat. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. I mean, Executive Director, NPAA, another Hall of Fame angler stopping in to give us stories of the great Scarlini, as we like to refer to him as. Lots of great stories coming through here today. So thanks for joining us, Pat.
Not a problem. I wouldn't have missed it. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Pat.
Who's queued up next?
Uh-oh.
Oh my word! Is that
Max Wilson?
That it is.
Are you leading the Cass Lake MWC? Are you winning the tournament right now?
No, we didn't lose it today, but we definitely didn't win it today. That's for sure. We
that
kept
comes in
ourselves.
the quote book, Wilson.
We kept ourselves in it, so that's all we could do. You know, Tommy was watching over us today, gave us a couple fish. He didn't give us the big ones. He kept those for himself up there, but you know that's just how Tommy was. But
Max Wilson, just so you know, a professional angler, and quite accomplished at that. NWT champion, MWC champion, you won an NTC championship too, didn't you?
Nope, came close. Didn't quite win that one.
I knew you were there, but a heck of a tournament angler. And if you're not aware of who Max is, this is a young and up and coming angler that Tommy really put under his wing as you got introed into the sport.
Yeah, you know, I can't even describe what Tommy meant, not only to my career, but just as a friend. I mean, Tommy came up to me in Sakakawea, was the very first. Everyone talks about the first time. He came up to me and cornered me in the bait shop once again. And I was stunned because, you know, here I just started tournament fishing. That was my first year on the National Walleye Tour. And here's a guy I watched on TV for years. And I went up to go introduce myself. And before he said anything, he goes, you know, I'm really proud of what you've done so far. And he goes, you're going to make a difference in this. And to me, to have someone that believed in me before I even really believed in myself was huge for me. And, you know, Tommy just went out of his way to treat me like a little brother, you know, for the longest time. You know, that very same event that Pat and I was talking about, I was actually fishing right next to Tommy in that one. And I was fortunate enough to be sitting in 10th after day one. And he calls me up and he goes, I have something for you, you know, come over by where we're staying. So I come over there, and here I was put on the front page of the local newspaper. And he grabbed like 7 copies from the store for me just so my mom could have it. He said, you know, that's something that mama needs, you know, and you know, just stuff like that. And, you know, everyone talks about the first time they met Tommy. And for me, the last time that I saw Tommy really, you know, stands out. You know, Chip, I talked with you at the Sioux, you know, and there's times where you just get tired, you start questioning, you know, you just get frustrated with the fishing life, everything. And that's kind of how I was feeling this year. And I went down and visited Tommy, and, you know, we just talked about life in general. And, you know, he was on the downturn, but he told me, he goes, you know, I lived a good life. You know, he goes, I'm very fortunate. He goes, you know, all he cared about till the bitter end was making a difference in other people's lives. Not the fact that, you know, he was battling this, you know, this tumor. It was what more he could do. He told me, he goes, my only regret in life is that I didn't do more. He goes, you know, faith for me was huge, and same with Tommy. And he actually gave me his personal Bible was the last gift he gave me. And, you know, I really got to lean on that the last couple of weeks, just, you know, remembering him. And yesterday I sat down and, you know, looked through it, and in the boat, once I found out it was a rough day, but, you know, it was kind of funny in its own way. You know, right after I found out the news about Tommy, and, you know, I went through my own emotions. I lost a brother, you know, there's some tears flowing. I looked on my graph, I saw a fish, and I pitched to it, and it was the biggest fish I caught all week. And it was like Tommy just saying, hey, go fish and don't worry about that. I'm okay. And, you know, that's the biggest thing we were all talking about here at the MWC was, you know, it's not the same without Tommy. You know, he made a living in fishing, but he brought life into fishing. He made the tournaments fun to be at. He was that guy that everyone liked to be around. You know, he'd break the tension whenever there was, you know, tension. So, I mean, there never will be another Tommy Scarlett. I'm really grateful that I got to get to know the Tommy that while we had him.
Max, how many more events have you got yourself this year?
Oh, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I got the NTC next week on Winnebago, and then the championship. I get to go visit Chip one last time, and then it's off deer hunting for the rest of the year.
Well, awesome. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing this, and we'll be following you on the tournament trails.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for everything you've done with Tommy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Max. Yep.
Well, we've got Ross Strothy been patiently waiting for us. You know, am I the only one that struggled pronouncing your last name over the years?
No, I've had that with a few different people.
Ross, is it possible to turn up your volume at all?
Yeah, we could do that.
Or get closer.
Yeah, just get a little closer. It's a little hard to hear.
How's that now?
That's better.
All right. Well, I don't know what to say. You mentioned his name, and it just brings a lot of smiles and memories to me and all the people I'm surrounded with. And it's been a couple of years. I got the word yesterday right before we got the vehicle. Traveled out to North Dakota with my wife. So we got to pick, spend the whole day reminiscing about Tommy and him and dad and any differences we've had together. And I mean, the guy just brings smiles to my face and it makes me laugh. It's one of the few people I've spent a lot of time with where I could go to bed with a smile on my face laughing.
Hey, Ross, can you try to reconnect? I think we might be smarter to let you go and have you try to get back in because I can barely hear him.
Yeah, we can barely hear you right now.
All right, we'll try.
And none of us are anywhere without a spouse that can actually help us with the computer. Ross
Hey, is there a case on your phone?
You got help there.
Off your phone.
Hi.
So if we're gonna, we could let Ross.
Why don't we phone call him?
Yeah, let's get Ross on the phone. In the meantime, I will. I'm going to tell you just a quick Tommy Scarlett story for a second here. Just we're sitting here. You want to know what Tommy Scarlett's personality was like? As you guys know, I was in business with Tommy for a number of years, and as our business evolved, we ended up buying this little house we utilized as an office, and it had a big shop, right? And inside this shop, there was a built-in vacuum cleaner because this guy that had owned the home was a big woodworker, and he had this big shop. Well, anyway. Fast forward, long story short, we didn't need the vacuum, so we had unbolted it from the wall, and this had become our fishing workroom and what have you. But over the years, working together, we would do these co-op garage sales with my wife and I, and then Tommy and Michelle. We would do these garage sales to get rid of whatever, as people do at garage sale. And it was a really fun thing. So just to give you an idea of what Tommy was like, there was this first of all, these garage sales were unlike. We were grossing like a lot of money, $80,000-$90,000. And this all started from the sense that Tommy started on one year he hadn't sold his boat, so we just put a price tag on the boat in the garage. We actually sold it, believe it or not, at a garage sale. We sold, which was beyond me. But so those little those little wheeled hose deals that you crank your yard hose up on, right? So we start this garage sale. I've got one. Tommy's got one. Mine is just, I don't want it, but it works perfectly. Tommy's has got like the busted wheel in half and doesn't crank properly. So he shows up and we're putting our stuff on. He goes, how much you getting for your wheel? I said, I don't know. I think I got $3 on it. He goes, oh, puts the little thing, sets it over. I go look, and his is $2. I'm like, what? Oh, no, I take it back. His is $4, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? He says, I said, yours is more than mine. Yours doesn't work. He says, trust me, mine will sell first. I kid you not. About halfway through the garage sale, the guy comes up, walking up with Tommy's cart, not my cart. He buys the broken one first. The other thing at this garage sale that was so funny was this big installed vacuum cleaner that was in the shop. This shop back, we had nobody's selling it. We know that we need to sell this garage, this vacuum cleaner, or we're going to find ourselves having to pay to get this thing removed. It's a huge vacuum cleaner, so it hasn't sold. So Tommy walks over to the big vac. It's bright silver. Takes a marker and writes Tommy the Tool Man Signature Edition and does this big signature across it. And it took like 10 minutes, and somebody says, I'll take that vacuum cleaner.
Hey, we got Ross back. And Ross, we'll see if we got better sound this time.
Does that sound better?
Oh, it's pretty rough.
Yes.
Ross, go get Reed. Reed will help you.
Okay.
Call me on my phone.
Let's bring up somebody else. Who we got next?
We have nobody in the lobby right now.
All right.
Just us. So,
John, how did
you
meet Tommy?
So this is probably early 90s when, I traveled with John Campbell and Ted Takasaki, or at least I knew John from living in the same town. And he had told me about this tournament circuit, this Masters Walleye circuit going on. And I started fishing with them down at the Illinois River. And I think they were actually kind of teaming with Scarless at the time and maybe John Kalinsky and some other guys. And I met him through them at a hotel room. But then it was, I don't remember the specific time, but I just remember how we developed this whole, it was very comedic, reciting like 80s movies. And we would just say these comments back and forth on the water to each other, but we were ultra competitive on the river. He'd be jigging, I pulled three ways. And when a guy is jigging, he had the right of way. If he's coming at you, you always had to get out of the way. So we were always just jacking at each other, but fun, playful, because we knew each other through Campbell and Takasaki. And those are just the times I remember. We had such a good rapport with each other, made each other laugh, but we always liked to beat each other on that Illinois River. And, I was fortunate enough to develop a really good, strong relationship with Tommy. Went to Michelle and Tommy's wedding. He would stay at my house through the years when he was coming through town for seminars and everything. But it reminded me all these stories about his competitiveness. I don't know where we were, but we were having an adult beverage somewhere, and we're sitting there, we're talking about sports and basketball and football and such. And I remember him to this day saying to me, JB, I wasn't very good at sports, and it just drove me nuts. He says, but when I started realizing that I could catch fish, that's where my competitive drive is. He goes, I just want to be the absolute best at fishing. And to this day, it stuck with me. I'll never forget him telling me that like all of that frustration that he might have felt because he didn't feel he had the talents athletically, he put into his fishing. And I could argue, athletically, he was one of the best fishermen that ever walked the planet. It's not an easy sport to do for 8, 10, 12 hours, 7 days for a tournament, couple hundred days a year. So I'll never forget that part of him. Absolutely. I'll never forget our banter back and forth, 80s music, we did impressions. I don't do a Ron Lindner impression, but we also do, we used to do a bunch of impressions together. So it was just always laughing, a friendship like no other, like in terms of that. Like you cannot outwit that guy. He was the quickest witted guy I knew. Like if you tried to tease him or he just had something quicker than you ever did, no matter how hard you tried, period. So
does Kai have that video?
What's that?
Kai have that? I was just asking Steve if Kai, do you have that video?
Which one are you talking about?
The one that was sent yesterday from the AIM? The rap video.
Oh,
I did see that. That was awesome.
Yes, I do. Would you like me to pull it up now?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it, JB.
Let's play it.
All right, here it comes.
Is what I want to dispel is a little bit of this trash talking that's going on from the Cat in the Do-Rag. I'm going to bust a rap here. Yo, hear this. I keep hearing this stuff coming out of this guy by the name of Stapon. But I'm going to tell you in the outdoors, I happen to be James Bond. You're talking to smack. He'd call you 00. Keep that your name because you ain't going to get 7. The only way you're going to catch that many fish is if you died and went to heaven. And the next thing I know, you took all my material. You said, my brother from another mother. Well, here, I got something I'm going to share with you another. I'm going to bring out something that's called my sister from another misker. She's the lady that's leading this tournament. She's Marianne Husky Pfister. So the last thing I'm going to say to you is, call your ma and call your pa because we're going to send you back dollarless to Canada. Oh, no.
Rapper Jam, Jemmy Jam, Tommy Scarless.
That's awesome.
That's
pretty good.
That is a great example. That's a great example of Tommy.
All right, we got Matt in the lobby, so let's
bring him in. It's a pleasure to have Matt Thompson here. If you don't know who Matt Thompson is a He's been around the promotional side and angling side of fishing for a long time, based in Minnesota, but has made an impact throughout the entire upper Midwest. And over the years of sport shows, been a participant in many a door opening trout contest with Tommy Scarless, and a lot of other things along the way. And that's why I'm really glad to have you here, Matt, because I know you've got some lighter side of Tommy.
Well, first off, other than Kai keeps kicking me out, it's a pleasure to be here. But
my apologies.
But there's a little screen on the side here that tells me I'm about to be kicked out and why. And the reality of it is Tommy was loved by so many people in so many different ways that the lobby keeps filling up of people just dying to get on here and express their love for the man. And to have an invite to this, I cannot thank you guys enough. And to sit here and listen to some of the things has been unbelievable. It's funny because there's such a world of Tommy. There's Tommy, the tournament Tommy. There's Tommy, the family man Tommy. And then there's Tommy with his friends. And Tommy with his friends is that rap video. It kind of sums up Tommy with his friends, except that, that was family friendly Tommy. So, and you're right. Tommy's quickness was, it was pretty unrivaled. I've been told that, I'm pretty brutally honest and quick. I've been told over the years, and Tommy and I have been able to go toe to toe, and you didn't know necessarily if you won, but it was like, wow, it's not over till somebody's got a snot bubble in their nose. So it's funny that you talk about the trout fishing, and because Tommy, being Tommy, you'd get there an hour before the sports show, and Tommy felt like, he needed to be there an hour and a half before you. And he would already have the trout whipped into a frenzy. But being Tommy, everyone you caught, even if you caught it, not him, he wanted to put it in a Ziploc bag. I don't know if he was planning on storing it at the Navionics booth for the day, or if he was taking it over to Leech Lake Fillet Knives to get filleted up and take home. But that cheap man, he was taking some trout for dinner.
So you gotta share. Just tell everybody a story of, I don't care, anything.
So it's funny. I've been sitting here listening to these stories, and they're all, they're awesome. And I've been racking my brain to tell stories that, I wouldn't be afraid to tell in front of people, which, believe it or not, there's more than I don't want to share. But, and Chip kind of preluded to it. I'm nowhere near where Tommy got to be in the point of his life, but we both kind of started in this industry about the same time. And Tommy was destined to be a big deal. He was. He just, that big head of his needed somewhere to entertain. And if you gave him a venue, he was going to entertain. And one of the first times that I ever did a live seminar with people, it was Tom Scarless and I. And I was there doing the muskie side of things, and Tommy was there obviously doing the walleye side of things. And Tommy went on for an hour and a half of the magic of crawler harnesses. and I sat there on the side of the stage thinking, now wait a minute. I'm throwing 1 pound baits all day long, working myself into a frenzy, and this guy is dragging around worms, and he's getting paid. He's getting paid to do this. So now it's my turn, and I get up on stage, and
I'm like, I got to tell you, I don't own any worms, and I don't know where to go after that whole deal. But I said, Tom, how exactly do you blow a worm? I heard you talking for hours about how you blow your worms and you blow your worms, and without missing a beat, in front of 800 people, Tom says, well, first you got to gain its confidence. And I was like, so we'll just not pick back at Tommy anymore. We'll just move on and talk about muskies. But the Tommy revelations where you just knew you had somebody special with you, where when he could be who he was in a crowd, yet he could feed off of you, right? And little things like I'm wearing this shirt right now. Tommy's the first person in my life that ever called me hangry, but it's literally been like the motto in my life. Apparently, everybody knows when it's time to feed me. we were at a sports show one time, and this is right when cell phones started to get big with the cameras, and Tom, of course, standing there, and two decent-looking gals came over and handed me their camera so that I could take a picture of them with Tom, which that's kind of an ego killer right there. So Tom puts one arm around each gal, and I'm standing there also with Trevor Sumption. And for anyone who knows Trevor Sumption, the guy's got the most expressionless face of anyone you'll ever meet. And Tom takes his picture with his arm around the gals, and he says, so where are you guys from? Tom says, Greece. And Trevor Sumption says, where the F is Greece, Iowa? And Tom went from entertaining Tom to, hey, we're going to go behind a boat and have a talk about who I am. It was that moment where finally somebody shut the man up. But yeah. What's crazy about this whole thing is you're talking about a guy who touches your life in such a way. It's been two years since Tom and I have been in contact. You're busy, you're doing things, and obviously Tom's life was different. At 9:30 yesterday morning, I sent Tommy a text that said, hey, even though we don't see each other every day and talk every day, don't ever think for a second I've forgotten it. And I literally said, I can hear that booming laugh of yours as if I heard it yesterday. And told him, said, I love you like a brother, and you've made us all Tommy strong. 3 hours later, Chip called, and we're talking away, and he says, hey, you and Tommy knew each other pretty well. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I consider Tom a good friend. He says, well, he passed. And and I'm thinking, well, I guess that explains why he didn't reply back to my text, but it's stunning, So literally last night at 11 o'clock at night, I sent him a text back that now I find out you're gone and I miss you, man. And please don't respond back to this text or I'll have to throw my hard-ass phone in the trash. So I loved him. I loved him like a brother. A lot of these guys, Tommy, Mark Kortz, Joe Carlson, that whole crew of people in this age group, we all came up together, and we've all gone separate ways, but this industry is so small that you're still always going to be tied together. And we are a generation that, to me, I think I call us the fun one. Because I think you got some of the most entertaining personalities in this industry out of the Tommy Scarlett generation.
Well said, Matt. Well said.
Thank you. All
right.
So,
thank you. We'll let you go, but thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for being here. It means a lot, and I love the way you bring out human side and make us laugh all at the same time, Matt.
No, and thank you so much for the invite, and it's an honor to get a chance to speak of such a great man. So thank you. I appreciate all of you, every one of you that's taking time out of your life to do this, taking time out of your life to watch this, and it's a phenomenal honor to a great man. So thank you.
Matt, thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
And you can you're watching some scrolls on the bottom of the screen there. There's obviously information on Tommy's memorial service that will take place this coming Tuesday. I believe there's a visitation, and on Wednesday is the actual funeral. So information is there as well for everybody, along with a GoFundMe page. Could anybody be interested in going that route? I know I did. I think one of the interesting things that Tommy did request, Michelle, of which I had a really nice conversation with her last night for probably 15 minutes or so, and told me that they're, in lieu of flowers, they're going to make donations to the
Minnesota Confidence Learning Center.
Camp Confidence Learning Center, correct.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. And it is scrolling on the bottom. His actual funeral is Wednesday next week in Waterloo at the Demetrios Greek Orthodox Church in Waterloo at 10:30 a.m. and there's a visitation tomorrow. Guys, it's been an interesting version of Pontoon tonight and this afternoon, and I think all of us have really had a chance to share some stories about Tommy and just kind of embrace the fact that he's actually done. I mean, it's what about you guys? But I actually did shed a couple of tears yesterday myself, and just all the posts on Facebook and all the stuff here today. So I don't know. He's gone, man. He's gone.
But I think there's so much more there, and I think that's what I love and what I've taken in this as we watch all the social media posts take place. And one of the reasons that we motivated this is because, I mean, how does anybody touch that many people individually in their own unique way? I mean, if you listen to this, it's not like one commonality that across the board he did this. He had a nickname for everybody. He had a little twist of how he influenced each individual in their own unique way, which to me is absolutely genius and speaks volumes about the character of the man, because he just cared so much about other people and inspired so many other people to be the best that they could be. He made us all better.
Yeah.
When I saw him in,
it'll be permanently amazing to me, his ability to continually give of himself. I know that I'm kind of the type of person that has to have a bucket full to give out of, and when that runs dry, I kind of need to shut the door and be by myself. But it never mattered where I was, what I was doing. He would call just occasionally, say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're doing well." In fact, the last conversation I had with him was 2 weeks before I moved to Minnesota from Alabama. So it's a little over a month ago, and he was struggling to communicate. But the last thing he said, he goes, "Hey, I heard you took a job within Fish," and he goes, "I'd always hoped you'd come back." And he was just very adamant to make sure he told me he was proud of me at a time when he could have had a whole lot of, stuff to be self-pity over, and he did to the very end. So an example of a man that knew how to give.
I was so glad to see him in January at his Hall of Fame induction. He was right here in Illinois, 20 minutes away, and I was absolutely blown away by, here he is facing his brain tumor, and he was recalling the names of a girl I dated in 2000 in a company I worked for. He could still remember that stuff. I mean, I was just like in shock, and he asked me questions about family or friends or tournament. It was just an amazing ability for the amount of people that he ran into through sports shows and tournaments and TV and all that. I can't even imagine all the people that he has met, and he's still able to remember certain specific details that many of our guests might even share. Like he would mention this or that to them that they were kind of blown away by his ability to recall something that they probably thought he was just going to forget or saying what that person wanted to hear at the time, but he remembered all of it. And that's the part that just was like, wow, this guy was legitimate. I mean, he really looked people in the eyes, and he made lasting friendships. He impacted so many people. In some ways, as a fan of tournament walleye fishing, he may have carried, amongst others, he may have carried that sport forward for 20 something years, just with his promotion ability, marketing partners, all of that stuff. He was one of the guys that incredibly just kept walleye fishing in the forefront of a lot of people's minds. So, to that, as a fan of the sport and a fan of him, just impressive, just absolutely impressive. And like I said, the outpouring, and to see how many people he has impacted, is absolutely mind blowing. It speaks volumes on the type of person he was, for sure.
Well, guys, I think we should wrap this up. Amazing stories. And I suspect I'll see a lot of you guys in Waterloo next week. So, and a lot of other people. But Chip, great to see you again. John, always great stories. By the way, did you remember her name?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And Thomas, it is really awesome to have you back home. It's really fun to see how many times you've been out in the lake lately. So that's awesome. Well, everybody, we'll see you next week, and thanks for coming on board today.
Thanks, Steve.
Tell your families you love them. Give them hugs.
Rest in peace, Tommy Scarless, for sure. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Peace.